Hi, my name is Christo Benz and welcome to this presentation on mixed reality and its use in education. Today we'll present mixed reality as it relates to the 21st century classroom. We'll be discussing its application, advantages, challenges, limitations, policies and guidelines that govern its use, and then obviously equity issues. We'll have a brief look at the history of the development of augmented reality, virtual reality, and mixed reality, and then we will start an in-depth investigation. But before we start, let's look at some key definitions. The first definition is that of virtual reality. Virtual reality is a term used to describe a three-dimensional computer-generated environment which can be explored and interacted with by a person. Then from augmented reality is an enhanced version of the physical real-world reality of which elements are superimposed by computer-generated or extracted real-world sensory inputs such as sound, video, graphics, or haptics. And then finally, mixed reality. Mixed reality is a particular subset of virtual reality related technologies that involve the merging of real and virtual worlds somewhere along a virtuality continuum, which connects completely real environments to completely virtual ones. Right, let's have a brief look at the history of the development of virtual reality, augmented reality, and mixed reality. In 1968, Ivan Sutherland developed the world's first head-mounted display. In 74, Muriel Kruger built the world's first artificial reality laboratory known as Video Place. In 1990, Tom Quiddle coined the term augmented reality. In 2014, Google launched Google Glass, effectively launching augmented reality into the everyday household and businesses. And then recently, Microsoft launched HoloLens, combining both the display capability and the computational power into a single unit. Moving now to the in-depth investigation. As we've said, we'll start looking at the application of mixed reality. The first one we will be looking at is augmented reality books, in which digital characters and concepts are overlaid over books, and while the student is reading these books, the characters effectively come to life. It very much enriching the experience of learning. Secondary, we have AR gaming, which has both gaming, learning, and industrial application. In the military and in government, they use virtual reality for advanced training, and in gaming, you can use augmented reality to interact with the game characters. Then discovery-based learning, it is possible to link the digitized objects in augmented reality and virtualized reality to external data sources, and as the users manipulate these objects, they can access additional metadata that will greatly enhance their learning. Then object modeling, students can use object modeling to overlay digital designs over real-world counterparts, and then by dissecting the digital components, get to know more about the workings of the real-world application or object. Skills training, very much similar to as an extension of AR gaming. However, in the commercial sector, it is also possible to do training such as communication training through virtual reality. Then, finally, a newcomer to the area, cyber classrooms, or more commonly known as virtual reality classrooms, in which students from all over the world can join in cyberspace, in virtual space, together with experts and their teacher to learn about key subjects and to contribute in that learning. Right, looking at advantages. Greater enjoyment and satisfaction due to the immersiveness of the technology. Understanding is enhanced, and learning, especially on complicated subjects like STEM subjects, are improved. Focus and attention is also increased. Creative thinking, MR enhances this capability, getting students to use creative ideas to solve problems. Then motivation is increased because students feel more immersed, more connected with the subject itself. And then, of course, all of these aspects lead into the inevitable academic performance increase, which is a very positive advantage. Cyber classrooms, as we've already said, not only does it introduce experts to wherever into the fray, wherever they are in the world, but it does break down additional barriers, barriers of distance, and specifically barriers around the definitions of roles. Students, teachers then feel more comfortable in collaborating. And then lastly, a cost reduction is predicted over time between MR approaches and more the traditional approach to teaching, especially in STEM subject areas. Right, some challenges, however. Um, Learning process, how well does the new technology fit into the existing student learning process? Obviously, if it's new to the students, they will have to be trained and they have to build confidence in the experience and skill in using the technology properly. Reliability. MR solutions depend a lot on connectivity, connectivity between multiple devices, connectivity to the internet. If this connectivity is discontinued or is unreliable, it leads to frustration and a breakdown in the learning experience. Uh, Resistance, obviously, with any change, resistance can come from teachers, from the school, teachers that are more struggling with the paradigm shift required and will resort back to a more traditional, safe method of teaching. Synchronicity, a lot of pressure from governing bodies for students to deliver certain contents of the curriculum in a certain time frame. In short, teachers might just not have the time to adopt new technologies such as MR. Instructional flow, uh, teachers are challenged by how MR fits into their overall lesson instruction flow. Where does their traditional teaching stop? Where does MR start? And very much how does it transition from one to the other? And then finally, content. Although content is growing rapidly, teachers still feel that often content is inflexible and lessons have to be adopted to the content rather than the content to the lesson. Some limitations. Limitations around technical issues, obviously, as with new technologies and specifically with MR or reality, mixed reality, problems around GPS errors, surface recognition, preventing proper rendering of digital objects in against the real world background. Then ability restrictions. The more advanced and technical the solution, the MR solution is, the higher the experience is required from the students themselves, which which requires teachers to come up with a strategy to grow young learners into the experience of using MR through more less complicated approaches, such as using smartphones and tablets. Intrusive device, although technology has reduced the size of these devices, wearing a head-mounted display or keep holding a mobile device, a smart device can be intrusive and teachers need to work around this. However, it also has an impact on the students themselves. Content availability, once again, that is a limitation. It takes time to develop new content. There are tools out that teachers can use themselves, but once again, this requires technical knowledge and time to produce. Learning confusion, as with many other technologies in the past, teachers and students and teachers can get sidetracked, and the technology becomes the subject rather than the content itself. And then lastly, cognitive overload, where students are exposed to a lot of information. They have to use complicated and integrated devices. This can lead, especially if they're younger, to cognitive overload, which hampers the learning experience. Then looking at policies, policies are divided into enabling policies. Now, Australia has a reasonably uncomplicated, realistic, and pragmatic vision of ICT in the schools. Basically, it comes down to encouraging teachers and students to use ICT in education and to build technical experience and to understand what the necessity is for ICT in society. Definitions, or examples of policies include schools need to use digital technology as an integral component of their learning and teaching programs safely and responsibly. This is from Victoria State Government, and then from Queensland Government will provide educators new ways to engage and excite learners, extending and enriching learning in a safe way. Now, the key here is safety. Now, MR comes with its own set of really complicated security issues. It does share the same type of security issues as most technologies that's connected globally. So things like hacking, data loss, identity thefts, content defacement, denial of service attacks, virus attacks, and then, of course, negative social interactions such as cyberbullying. Now, with the immersiveness of MR, this situation can be greatly inflated. And now, through normal standard security policies governing protection through security patches and so forth, this problem can go away, and through obviously proper behavior as a digital citizen. Then, how does the MR relate to the Australian curriculum itself? Now, the curriculum calls for investigating using ICT, creating in which that teacher students and teachers are encouraged to use technology, in this case MR, to support their learning. And as I've shown, it has already shown great value in a number of subject areas. Then creativity, it has been shown that MR greatly enhances the creativity of students using this technology. Communication, as we've already mentioned, through VR classrooms, and even in the classroom, it breaks down the barriers of distance, definitions of roles, which greatly facilitates collaboration. Then managing um, 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 learning. Students can use MR technology to discover a diverse range of areas, even outside of the curriculum itself. And then, because these the MR solutions are in education is very often subject specific. They are specialized in areas such as mathematics, physics, and chemistry. Then social and ethical protocols. MR provides a new frontier for students to learn about socially and ethical interaction, and teachers will be key in this role to build those ICT skills. Right, concluding with equity. Equity refers to students with disability, lower income socioeconomic groups, English as an additional language or dialect students, and then, of course, Indigenous Australian communities and, in general, Indigenous communities and cultures. From a disability perspective, training programs are out there, programs are available, as examples below show, to be used as rehabilitation training, social skills training, and technical skills training for people with disabilities. In these examples, we have the MR being used for students with cerebral palsy and with the likes of autism. Then it has been shown through research that MR can greatly enhance the learning capability of students in foreign language lessons, together with reducing foreign language learning anxiety. Indigenous Australian elders have participated in programs such as the Virtual Dreaming Simulating Everyday Life of the Daruk People project, in which they created MR virtual reality content that then gets used by students to learn about the Daruk people culture. In a similar vein, different cultures, different indigenous cultures can use the technology in the unfortunately the last part is around social economics. Now, although technology has reduced in cost, even these low costs can sometimes prevent schools, especially ones in lower income socioeconomic communities, to not be able to deliver any level of MR to their students. Now, this presentation is not there to present any solutions to the problem, but we do reflect on the Dr. Southgate, Dr. Smith, and Mr. Cheers' sentiment. This is a call for all those involved in education to act now. Educators and students alike need to dream up sandpit protocol, a prototype, create proof of concepts, and rigorously apply existing and emerging technologies as soon as tools to ensure fairer education outcomes and futures. Now, that in essence concludes our deep dive on the concept of mixed reality in education. But before we conclude, let's just look at some final thoughts. Um, we know MR is here to stay. It has challenges and limitations. However, the MR's benefits in education is undeniable. Australian government has adopted policies to encourage the use of these emerging technologies. Technology studies is ingrained in the Australian curriculum. Security and physical risks do exist, but they're not insurmountable. Unfortunately, even now, MR technology is not cheap, and it probably will not be cheap enough for certain communities to use effectively. MR is a viable teaching tool for students with disabilities and English as an additional language and dialect, and can assist cultures to expose others to their history. In a final thought, irrespective of whether we end up in holodecks on the Starship Enterprise or plugged into the Matrix, it should be clear that educators have no choice but to take the first cautious steps to explore the wonderful new world of mixed reality education. I thank you, and it was a privilege to present this presentation to you. If you want information about the actual resource references, you can find this under this reference under definitions, timelines, and introduction in investigation. Thank you.